Something cool is coming down the pike and you're going to want to be there. I am so excited to be sharing this with you all very soon. And the best way to get in the loop and be the first to know what is going to be happening with Body Kindness is to become a Body Kindness Insider. It's absolutely free. All you need to do is visit bodykindnessbook.com and click on Get Started. That's bodykindnessbook.com. Click on Get Started and you're going to give your email address. When you get that, you're going to get instant access to the Body Kindness e-course, also free. That's going to give you a video reflection guide. One of my favorite resources, it's the Health and Happiness Journal. So when folks are like, I want to track things, but I don't want to count calories anymore. I'm getting rid of my Fitbit. What do? You can use this daily journaling practice. It's simple. It's effective. It gets you thinking in the body kindness mindset. And, it's all there for you for free. And you could start reflecting on the changes that you're making in your life. So when you sign up as an insider, you're also going to get check-ins from me, and you're going to be the first to know what I have up my sleeve coming here very soon. You're not going to want to miss it. Thank you so much for listening to my Body Kindness podcast. I would love it if you would leave a rating and review. That really helps me very much in just hearing how people feel about the podcast. And also, I would love to get guest recommendations or suggestions for show topics. You can email me. It's Rebecca@bodykindnessbook.com. It's September and we are in our Yoga Month Challenge. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is the first of two special yoga-focused podcasts that I have for you this month with two women I admire greatly. First up is Guest Jelley. She is amazing. She's the founder of Curvy Yoga, and she really opens doors to yoga and accessibility for all people. And I just love what she's been doing. She's got a book on Curvy Yoga. Highly recommend that. I think you're going to love this show. My goal for doing a challenge around yoga, I always do things because I need them. So, frankly, it's Yoga Month. I wanted to get back into yoga myself and remind myself of all these benefits I've gotten to my well-being as a result of doing yoga. Connection is a body kindness pillar, and yoga really helped me to connect to my body and feel self-compassion. I know I've mentioned that on lots of podcasts. So it makes sense that this is something that I'm encouraging us to do. And so, really yoga is just breath. So we can all breathe. We can all do this. And I just want to say thank you so much for participating. If you are sharing on social, please tag with the hashtag Body Kindness and then also BK Yoga. I would love to see what you're doing and also learn from you as well. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the show. Because real health is about being good to yourself. It's time for Body Kindness, the place where all bodies fit and weight is just a number. Hi, I'm Rebecca Scritchfield, author of the book Body Kindness, registered dietitian, nutritionist, certified exercise physiologist, and host of this podcast. My topic today is weight-inclusive movement and why it's so important to reframe exercise as something you do because you love your body, or at least like it, and you want to take care of it. And we're going to be approaching this conversation through the lens of yoga, which has had a significant role in helping me heal my body image, and I know yoga has helped many others too. My special guest to discuss this today is Guest Jelley. Guest Jelley is the founder of Curvy Yoga, an online yoga studio and teacher training center that helps people of all shapes and sizes find true acceptance and freedom, both on and off the mat. Anna is the author of Curvy Yoga, Love Yourself and Your Body a Little More Each Day, and the co-editor of Yoga and Body Image, 25 personal stories about beauty, bravery, and loving your body. Anna and Curvy Yoga have been featured online and in print at the New York Times, the Washington Post, U.S. News and World Report, Yoga International, Yoga Journal, and many more. You can visit Curvy Yoga online at curvyyoga.com. Welcome to the show, Anna. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. I am delighted to be here.
Well, let's just dive in and to get started. Could you just tell us a little bit more about yourself and your recent work?
Sure. Curvy yoga is something that I created because I couldn't find anything like it and I really wanted it as a practitioner. So I've been practicing yoga since the late 90s and was almost always the biggest person in the room. And at the time, it never struck me as a problem that the instruction wasn't tailored for my body because I was in a time of constant and chronic dieting and was always trying to lose weight and change my body. So I just felt like, oh, well, yoga must obviously be for thin people. So once I finally get thin, then I will understand it. But what happened is that over time, I started to really question my relationship with dieting because it just kept failing over and over again because as I know now, that is what diets do. I didn't know that at the time.
It takes many failures on diets before we're like,
Yes, exactly. So I started to learn about body acceptance. And as I did, I had this moment where I just thought, oh my gosh, I don't think my problem in yoga this whole time has actually been my body. It's just been that my teachers don't know how to teach bodies like mine. And so that was the spark for Curvy Yoga. And I became a yoga teacher and started blogging and sharing with people. And over the years, so Curvy Yoga has been in existence for, I guess, a little over 7 years now. It has grown into the online studio, teacher training. We have Curvy Yoga teachers now all over the world to make space for people to practice yoga and feel good in the bodies that they have.
Yeah, I know. So my practice is based in Washington, D.C., and I would say about 50%, maybe even a little more of my clients definitely have body image issues, but have either history or present eating disorder, and most binge eating disorder. And I have had people with eating disorders at any size you can imagine. You know, it's really not size related. But what I found is that there's a very traumatic history with exercise in most of my clients and they even come saying, you know, I can't say I'm 100% on board with what you're about because, you know, I still have reservations and, you know, I get it's culture, you know, when they come in, it's like, I'm still hoping to lose weight, but I know I can't do another diet. I know that I can't, like, I know where I'm at is wrong. So where can you help me from there? And when that's how I found out about you was doing some searching for what are ways, you know, I can't be with my clients all the time. What can I give them as tools for exercise that won't make things worse?
Right.
And I found you and Curvy Yoga. I thought it was all so amazing and needed. And frankly, I think if you look at where we're at now, way ahead of its time in a lot of ways. And, you know, so I really consider you a pioneer in really transforming and helping us step away from diet culture and just moving into this idea of reframing why we exercise, how we exercise. And it's crucial to help people move forward because I think it also fills this void in that critical step between, say somebody starts with, I exercise, you know, because I want to lose weight and punish my body or make up for, you know, something I ate. And which falls kind of right along the lines of what our diet culture says. Yeah, that's normal. Go ahead.
Right.
You know? But they know it's not working for them and they might need a break from movement, right? Which is understandable. But there's so many benefits that have nothing to do with weight or size.
Right.
To movement. And that crucial transition is so important. And we need a whole new frame for exercise and how we can help people change what they think about it and how they do it. So I just want to say thank you for all those things that led you to this point. Because, you know, before I even wrote Body Kindness, I knew I was going to include Curvy Yoga in the book. But before I even wrote it, I was looking for places. There are places in DC who teach Curvy Yoga and just recommending it to any size or shape client as a place where you can get compassionate care for your well-being. So yeah, I'm just so appreciative of everything that you do.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I think everything you've been saying is so right on. And what I love about yoga is that I think it does meet people in that transitional place because of how it asks you to really listen to your body. I think many forms of movement, there's an opportunity to do that, but yoga very explicitly in classes, teachers are asking you to notice that. And I think those tools are essential for anyone who's wanting to be able to connect with, learn from, listen to their body more in the effort of a path of acceptance.
Yeah. And I guess, we probably should clear the air right in the beginning about, for the purposes of our conversation, when we're talking about yoga today, like we're talking about the forms and approaches of yoga, which there are many, but that are not what you would see in that yoga shred. I've seen that on Facebook or 10 days to transform your body through yoga that, it's really just, unfortunately, a hijacking of the true benefits of what yoga is meant to be about by our diet culture. And so, I'm assuming you'd agree, but I would just tell people you really do need to follow a path of yoga that is not about those things. So turn all that off, ignore all of that. Not that you're going to have every teacher is exactly aligned with you in body positivity or every student in the class. Like we can't completely put ourselves in a bubble.
Sure.
But there are some obvious not body positive yoga things out there. We want you to just ignore all that and embrace Curvy Yoga and the types of classes that are going to focus on breath and connection. What are your thoughts just on that? I don't want to, harp on the negative too long, but I'm sure you must have thoughts about where yoga has been and is going and where you would like it to go.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think when anything becomes a big part of the culture, there's always kind of a double-edged sword. So the beauty of yoga becoming so mainstream is that many people know about it now. And I think a lot of people have gotten the idea that yoga is good for you, that it can reduce stress. The struggle comes from what you were saying is when it has met fitness culture and really picked up fitness culture things like you were saying, like change your body in 10 days or whatever that we all know is, not a thing, but it does sell well. And so I think it has been a benefit and a challenge. And what I am hopeful about at this moment in time is that there is, I think, becoming more and more critical awareness of being able to use yoga as a way to connect with your body, to learn from it, and more people having these conversations. Because when I started Curvy Yoga, like I mentioned, it was because I had really been looking for something like it and could not find it. And now there are many more people who are having these conversations, teachers who are bringing body positivity into their classes. And so people can definitely find that. And my hope is that more and more teachers are going to become interested in, aware of, and develop the resources and skills to be able to teach students of all shapes and sizes so that anybody can walk in the door and know that they're going to be met in that class, seen in that class, and supported.
Yeah, that's so important, right? Because we're only like a single person, right? And
it's
like passing that flame or whatever, metaphor you want to use, I think is some of the most important work the early influencers and experts who have influence like yourself can do if we're really going to make waves. And, like I remember when I knew myself, I was like, okay, I need to change everything that I'm doing. It's all wrong. It never worked for me. I'm not helping my clients. And it is so, so scary, the uncertainty. And like, I would still say today that if you're in the exercise and fitness industry, whether you're a yoga teacher or you're interested in becoming one, or a personal trainer or group fitness, if you are a fitness and exercise expert, pretty much all of the history of your training, all of your current CEU type training, and your job, the person who's signing your paycheck, is likely to be weight loss focused and body and appearance focused. And it's hard, right, to be in that spot where you want something else and you believe it's possible as you're learning and growing, but there's also the uncertainty and fear of feeling stuck. And I think the best advice that I have at that point is there are other people out there. Find your people. You have control over your own voice. Even if Brene Brown calls it a messy middle, we all tend to skip over the messy middle. I think that's where you are when you're first aware, but don't be afraid of taking actions so that you can start, you're not going to know exactly, this is exactly the kind of instructor I want to be. I think you can envision that. But it's going to require a lot of bravery and a lot of risk taking. And I think deciding, okay, this is a scenario where I need to, speak up for what I believe in because I know my words have power, and let me pick the ways I can control in my current situation that are along the lines of where I believe I need to go. And then everything evolves from there.
Right. When I am training teachers, I like to talk about this as an experiment in the sense of you have an idea of who you want to be as a teacher, how you want to support students, and that is so important to bring into your work. And at the same time, your students are going to be teaching you're going to be discovering what you're interested in and what people's needs are that maybe you weren't anticipating. It's really such a practice. As a yoga teacher and student, I love talking about practice. I think it's such a useful framework. And I think that is, equally true for people who are trying to discover what their work is going to be. Because even for me, though I have been teaching for 8 or 9 years, it's always evolving in different ways because I'm growing and changing. The conversation is very different from where it was when I started. And I think we have to be open and responsive to that, and that a lot of that drives our work in ways that are both expected and unexpected.
Yeah. And I think it's important from the instructor standpoint to realize that you went into this field for a reason, and it's likely somewhere along the lines of helping people.
Right.
And to always be open and to truly ask, is this helpful? What would be more helpful? And it becomes pretty clear that it's essential to be weight inclusive and non-diet, even if clients are asking for it.
Right. Yeah, to hold that space, because one thing that I like to talk about with teachers is people can find a space to talk about weight loss literally everywhere. So for your yoga class or your training session or your whatever to be the one space where they're not going to be inundated in that conversation can be really powerful. And I think you mentioned this earlier, but it makes sense that people are maybe like, I don't even know if I'm interested in that, or maybe they're even a little resistant to it. But just letting them kind of percolate in the space, I think has a lot of power. And the other thing you mentioned earlier that I think is so important is that, I tell my teachers all the time, you're not going to be for all students, but you are going to be for some and many students. So what you're trying to do is find those people who you are going to be a fit for, because that's a win-win scenario when the students feel like they really have something to learn from you and when you feel like you really have something to give. Because as much as I or other people want to give to everyone, of course I know that doesn't really make sense. I don't personally love every single yoga teacher that I encounter as a student either. It's all about finding that connection.
Yeah. No, I think it's one of the easiest ways to like move on and let go of something where it's like, oh, that's just not my person, not the right opportunity, or, we're in two different places. And it's almost like the polar opposites of magnets. Go ahead and let yourself repel from that person and go find a person you could stick to instead.
Yes.
Let's talk about the student experience a little bit, and maybe just the idea that no matter what size body a person is in, that they're coming from a place of, I've had a bad history with exercise and movement. It's hard for me not to think about weight loss or hoping to change my appearance. Or they may even feel conflicted about, I know that exercise is important for health, but it's so entrenched into appearance that it's hard for me. And they may even be avoiding exercise beyond the number one barrier, which we're all already overbooked, and not sleeping enough. And exercise is a common thing that falls up. So outside of the just struggle with calendar, there is sometimes like a real avoidance related to past negative experiences with exercise. So what would you say to that student who, the student knows deep down that movement is important, but yet the thought of doing it or the experience of doing it hurts emotionally because of the past?
First, I would say I totally understand that perspective. And it's something where, I had this experience too, where the only reason that I exercised for so much of my life was to discipline and punish my body. It was never about enjoyment or because it felt good or to move or shift my energy. And so I also came to it with a bit of a side eye.
What is this crap?
Exactly. So I think just honoring that truth and not making it wrong is important. Because I think when you're coming into body acceptance, it's easy to feel like, or to translate that diet culture really approach to it, where it's like, I'm either in or I'm out. I'm doing it or I'm failing at it. And really, body acceptance is so much more of a practice and a process. So I have plenty of people who come to Curvy Yoga who are on a diet or who are thinking about it or who aren't sure. And to me, it's all welcome because I just feel like, of course they feel that way. All of culture supports them in feeling that way. And so you can come to this yoga class with whatever skepticism or whatnot that you have. And I think what's important is just letting yourself be open to what unfolds on the yoga mat, in the pool, on the hiking trail, whatever form of movement it is that you are doing, and see what it has for you and really pay attention to how does my body feel in this moment. So even if those, questions about whatever, am I burning calories, come up, like you can just say, oh, interesting, I'm having this thought. And then return to, well, how am I feeling right now? Like, how am I feeling physically, emotionally, what's happening for me in my mind? And start to, over time, shift your attention more toward those inner cues.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly what I was thinking, is that it is, I think I would say the real challenge is like set a date and show up. Like, that would be step one in the avoidance piece, no matter how you feel, so the quote, feel the fear and do it anyway. It kind of helps to reduce anxiety when you acknowledge that you're probably going to be anxious, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's here. Okay. So this is what I expected to feel. So I think that part. And then once you actually get there, to observe without judgment.
Right.
Because just as you were saying, you were going to have negative, unhelpful thoughts that come into your mind. I know for me, the first yoga studio I went to in DC, it was like no mirrors. And I was like, oh, I love this. So I think that was really helpful to kind of get out of my own head. But your thoughts, they can run roughshod on you, especially because of the past negative experiences. It's not going to be this magical, effortless transformation.
Right.
So, action 1, showing up, action 2, really, it's almost like holding your own hand in your mind. And even if you visualize, when I hear these thoughts, it's like someone I care very deeply about, and how would I respond to that? So rather than kind of chasing these negative thoughts and kind of almost fueling this negative experience, like you said, notice them and just observe, breathe, stay fully committed to just picking up on what the real experience is like, even if it's not that good, but that awareness might show you some bright spots where you do ease. Yoga especially has that way. By focusing on the breath, you do ease into a relaxation, you ease into a sense of calm. So if your anxiety goes from 10 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10, it's getting better,
Right.
And any positive benefit after that one step is a sign of progress. It's new knowledge, it's new experience, it's laying the new foundation for you redefining what you want exercise to be.
Yeah, and I think it's even possible that after just one experience, you might feel like you didn't have any positive effect. I think it can take time to unravel these narratives that we have, that we've been given over the course of time. So often I think, well, it took me, 25 or 30 years to build up all of this. So I might not feel like I have unraveled any part of it in one yoga class or one experience or whatever. But what I am trying to do is continue to show up for myself over time and know that some days I'm going to feel like, oh my gosh, I've really changed my relationship with my body. Other days I'm going to feel like I'm back to worse than I was before. And then it's all this kind of reciprocal experience. And I just wanted to bring that in because I think sometimes people can feel like body positivity, or however they phrase it, is going to be like running through a field of puppies and rainbows
and unicorns.
Right, everything. And that's not always, or even I think often, the experience. So just making space for the whole thing for each individual person, I think, is really important, because I think what you're really trying to do is begin to notice your own reactions and your own patterns. So for example, for me on the yoga mat, I know that if something new comes up, that I often will start to inwardly criticize my own body. Like, I'm never going to be able to do that. This is so crazy. And so I've started to notice that connection over time between the new and body judgment, and begin to break them apart and be like, oh, well, this is just new, so maybe I'm feeling a little bit nervous about it, but I don't have to blame my body, particularly before I even try it. So I think when we can notice our own patterns, it really takes a lot of their power away, because then we're like, oh, this is just how I always respond to when something's new, or to when I don't feel well, or to when I'm whatever, getting my period. That when we notice those patterns, it feels less capital T true in the moment. Then we're like, oh, right, I always do this. Okay, great. So now what am I going to do instead?
Yeah. So really, really getting to know yourself, and which then makes me think about acknowledging our own humanness.
Right. Yeah.
So that means we might have a place that we can't get to in a certain pose that day, and that's okay. We might make a mistake, or be that person who's running into class like at the last minute or even a couple minutes late and feels horrible, and that's okay. Just that actually, no matter what is happening, that it's okay, and to keep moving forward. Because I think when you're trying to reframe your relationship with exercise and movement, it's really about changing who you are and how you allow movement to fit into your life. And you do control those buttons of this is not for me. I'm going to ignore that. This is more of the direction of where I want to go. And the only way you really know is by giving yourself those experiences and then asking, well, what can I learn from this? What can I learn from that? And what do I want to do from here?
Well, I'm so glad you said the thing about being human, because one of the things that I've really learned on the yoga mat, but also in other forms of movement that I do, that I've heard from other students, is that when you are entrenched in a fitness culture mindset, you feel like your movement is only going to move forward in a linear trajectory. Like, I start yoga, I don't know how to do this pose. Within, 5 classes, if I'm being generous, I will be in headstand. Okay, so then if I'm not, I'm a failure. Or if I do it once and I can't do it again the next time, I'm a failure. But I think what it really means to live in a human body is we're changing all the time. Sometimes we can do things, sometimes we can't do things, and it doesn't have to mean anything. I think what we can do is, when we are trying to change our relationship to movement, is say, I'm showing up in my body and I'm going to see what my body is up for today, what feels good for it. And some days that's more than last time, sometimes it's less, sometimes it's the same. But what we see is, and what we can really learn about, is this like evolving relationship that our body has.
Yeah. And it is evolving, and it is always, I definitely noticed it was some sort of in the DNA, but when I turned 40, miraculously, I started just truly deep inside caring a lot less what other people think. So I don't know if that's age related, or I'm exhausted with the people pleasing, or what, but even who I am as a person has definitely evolved through experience. And frankly, prioritizing what is it that I like and I want. So less about conforming. Where do I try to fit in and who do I follow? And just dropping that sort of tug of war rope and going on an adventure and truly taking that power back.
Right.
So, and it is essential, right, in that breaking apart from diet culture, because we are in it. We hope to change it on the larger scale level, but that's sort of like, that's not an overnight thing, but we change the choices that we make, right? Which hopefully influences our thoughts and feelings and the path where we go. But we do have that sense of agency, even if we're feeling like it's so hard, which it is, right? Everywhere you go, like you talked about, you're going to get messages that may not align, or they assume. I know in the Body Kindness group on Facebook, when we get into conversations about it, so many people say things like, I wish trainers would realize that not everybody even has weight loss goals, or we're not necessarily motivated by that's actually very hurtful. So I definitely think finding the places that are going to lift you up rather than trying to conform, even if it's a good friend of yours who's trying to get you to go and do something that just doesn't work for you. Sure, experiment, but you can say, this isn't really what I'm looking for. Thank you. And find what does.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's the beauty of how many different options there are these days, is that it might take some time, but I think people can find what is a good fit for them.
Let me ask you a question. Have you found it helpful when people focus on wellness or health or feeling benefits of movement that aren't centered around weight and appearance? Like, does it help them? Does it help you help them?
Yeah, I think so. One of the things that I talk about, and I've experienced this personally, is really focusing on how you feel and how that's affecting the rest of your life. I think can help people to connect more with movement rather than feeling like it's something imposed on you from the outside. It's something that is internally motivated. So I can just give an example from my own life. And that is, in the past, 5 years or so, I have become more aware of my own anxiety. And for so long, I felt like, oh, it's because of how I relate to my body. It's because of this or that that's happened in my life. I had all these things that I felt like needed to kind of be worked through, and I did. So I, did therapy and read books and all these different things and sorted some of those things out and realized, oh, this anxiety is still here. There's something else going on. And what I started to notice was a connection between when I moved my body, I felt less anxious. I discharged some of that pent up energy. And so for me, that has it's made movement much more something I'm interested in, something I want to do on a regular basis, because it's not coming from, oh, I have to get out there because this diet plan told me I should, or because I read it in a magazine or whatever, but because I concretely know that I feel better when I do it. And I can tell when I haven't done it, that energy is building up. I'm feeling more and more anxious. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to go for a swim, go for a hike. Those are my two kind of go-tos in addition to yoga. And when I do that, then I'm like, oh, I feel so much better. And it doesn't feel like an obligation. It feels like self-care, really.
Yes. Ding, ding, ding. Self-care. I mean, and not that sort of self-care because you're going to lose weight. It's like,
right.
No.
Exactly.
No. It's unconditional. I think you're right. It's in how you're feeling, and even other connections between sleep and movement and mood. I think there's some immediate differences that you notice, even like the reframing of clients maybe feeling sore after doing a workout that might not even have been intense, but just it becomes, oh yeah, I breathe and I challenged myself to hold the pose longer, to go into another pose, or to do a extra slow push-ups, or, something that was reframed into what felt like a good time for a challenge, and then notice some soreness and being able to frame that thought to, I challenge my body, I'm strengthening my muscles, and that matters to me because I like to travel or explore my town on foot. I'm grateful for things I could do. There's always going to be something that you can connect the dots away from, now I'm a better person because I did this, or that sort of last ditch hope of maybe this will lead to weight loss or something. It's like, if those thoughts come into your mind, you can take action to reframe what you're seeing as the benefits, to be along the lines of something that you do truly value, and not feel like you might be participating in diet culture. I'm sure you get that a lot too, right? That sort of confusion and ambivalence over when they're noticing benefits and then they kind of get scared about, oh, is this diet culture talk or something? So
yeah, I think some language that you used earlier of weight neutral is something that I use as well. And just to remind people, like, the focus is really on the present, on your experience. And then the weight just does what it does. We don't have to make meaning out of that. And so just bringing yourself back to that weight neutral perspective, I think, can be helpful. Because like we've been talking about, of course, those thoughts might come up. But as you said, you can choose to reframe them in that moment.
Yeah. And, everyone is in a different place. So I often hear, like, I get the idea mentally, but I still want/need to lose weight, and maybe kind of calling, I had a medication change or something, and I can tell it's fueled in a place of scarcity and anxiety. But then again, I still go back to the idea of holding space for that, but with a sense of compassion, accepting that weight isn't something that you control, but that think of how you feel and all the other benefits movement can bring to your life, and how they together help you be in your current body, or help influence potentially or improve your health in ways that you're connecting it to a need for weight loss. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Right.
So it's like, maybe it's not the weight loss thing that you need, but it's the movement that you need, because really you get these other benefits that are most likely to, and I will say that because I feel like I don't say it enough, that culturally, we believe that we have 100% control over our health, or that health is the most important thing we should be doing. And really, it is genetic. You know, the largest influence will be genetics. But that there are, when you're taking actions and you feel it come back to weight loss, and that might be feel very, very true in your experience. And if again, I guess why I kind of wanted to let listeners know about it is because when it goes back to the negative and the way it kind of reopens the shame, it reopens the door back to punishment and the need to redirect yourself to what is it exactly that I care about? What is it that exercise gives me that is important to me, and how does it help in all these other ways that I believe impact my health, to kind of redirect your mind, you know, because the more you do that compassionately, I think eventually all of a sudden one day you're like, oh yeah, I have reframed movement. I have reframed exercise.
Yeah, that's such an important thing to foreground, is that it often is a process that feels like you're not noticing it until you have a moment where you're like, oh, things have changed in how I relate to my body. And I love what you're saying about really putting your focus on how your body feels, what you want to, like the benefits that you want to get from movement. Because I think so often when we have a goal of weight loss, or I'll just say that for myself, I know this was true, that what I really wanted, if I dug down, was to feel good in my body, to feel good in my own skin. And so what I like to talk about now, both to myself and with students, is, well, what if you just started focusing on that now? What if you didn't wait until you lost weight or whatever? You didn't make that part of the factor. You just said, okay, if my goal is to move with more ease or to feel better in my own skin, like, what helps me start doing that right now? And usually that is different forms of movement that you find, or, you know, talking with a friend. There's so many different things that support you in feeling good in your own body. So letting that become your focus.
While you sit with whatever those thoughts and desires are that feel like a deep part of you, I mean, it's deeply ingrained. So just let it sit there and do what you know in your heart you need to do for yourself anyway. Just keep focus on that direction.
Right.
I have a couple more questions for you. One is around affordability of yoga, or maybe other parts of movement, but like, what are ways that people can participate who may be on a budget? I mean, gyms can be expensive, and there's boutique studios that are expensive. And I think a lot of times it can feel like a barrier. So what would your advice be so we can kind of open up yoga and movement across budgetary concerns and socioeconomic status?
Yeah, I think one of the great things of how many different yoga teachers we have these days is that there are lots of different opportunities, and certainly not in every community, but in very many communities, not only big cities. There's free yoga going on, there's low-cost yoga going on, looking at places like community centers, libraries, parks, etc. Some yoga studios, it just depends. So I think doing a little bit of investigating can help you to find resources that are available to you. And the other thing is, there are a lot of resources on the internet. Yes. So videos that you can find, you know, we have an online studio that is the cost of one drop-in yoga class per month. So try to make that really affordable.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's just $20 a month, and you have access to over 100 different video practices.
That they could do at home, right?
Yeah,
like anytime,
All
anywhere.
different lengths, 5 minutes to 60 minutes and length. So there's lots of different things like that available for sure.
That's so awesome. Especially the different length. I mean, home-based, different lengths. I mean, as a mom of 2 kids, I'm like, oh, that's perfect for me.
Right. That is so important to me, because I totally get that. I mean, I am the same way. I know that everybody is. And there really is power in doing even 5 minutes of yoga practice. You come back to your body, you move a little bit, you breathe. I think so often we feel like it's not going to make a difference, but when you actually let yourself do those 5 minutes that you have, you're like, whoa, that did make a difference. I'm glad I did that.
Exactly. Yes. Like I said, even if it's a subtle shift in your mindset, it's going to help you. I talk about like the downward spiral effect, right? It's going to help you maybe notice that you're downward spiraling, at least neutralize it. And then hopefully next would be boosting the mood and emotions and everything. One other question I wanted to know about are some of your thoughts on what else would you advise people to try to prepare and feel more as comfortable as you can as you're trying to be more consistent with movement. I guess my mind is going toward clothes that feel good or just being able to notice other things that might be going on with your body. Like I'm sure through your courses and teacher trainings and working with people that you've kind of come up with your sort of checklist of this might be helpful, that might be helpful. So I'd love to get kind of any of your thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the clothes thing is definitely huge when you feel like what you're wearing isn't comfortable or you're really aware of like, I have to tug this shirt down or whatever the case is. It's very distracting. So finding things that you feel really good in, I think make a big difference in the yoga practice. I think the other thing is finding classes that are going to support you, not where you have to really kind of be like winging it on your own or feeling like you can't keep up. So particularly for people who are brand new to yoga or relatively new, maybe returning to yoga, I always encourage people to start with classes that are called beginners or gentle or hatha or some of the terms that you're looking for. And one of the things I think is interesting to see if it's mentioned on the website or the class description. You could also ask the teachers about this. I think it's totally fair to have conversations with teachers before you try classes. Do they have yoga props available? So if people don't know, those are tools that support the yoga practice. So things that help you, for example, bring the floor to you in a forward bend if you don't reach the floor with your hands, which most people don't. Those tools are so wonderful because they help you to customize the pose to your body. And I am a huge believer that poses are available to all bodies. It's just a matter of finding your own version of the pose. And I think that's what yoga is all about, at least to me as a teacher and a student, is really finding what is working for my body, what is working for this student's body. How do we help people find the benefit of the pose, even if it doesn't look like someone else's version of the pose? So looking for those classes where you're going to be fitting the pose to you, not the other way around.
Yeah, that's so important. It is not the goal of yoga to see, can I do everything, the full expression of the posture with no props whatsoever.
Right.
Like, and in many cases, you actually need the props to do the poses correctly. It's about alignment. And even before alignment, it is about breath. I mean, you're literally doing yoga, laying on your back and just breathing.
Right. Yeah, I'm all about the individual expression of the pose, not the full expression.
Yeah.
It's one of my soapbox topics.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I said I loved not having mirrors. I would focus on my little wandering eyes too. It's just like, I had this great instructor that just kept talking about look inward and hold yourself with compassion. And it was in a true, authentic way, like almost like this caregiver that guided you to be in the moment and let yourself be there. And sure, you know, like any accomplishment in life, if you get a little bit further in the expression of the pose, or you feel a challenge that you breathe through. One of my teachers talks about sweet, sweet discomfort, she calls it. Yes, of course you're proud of yourself when you accomplish little bits of things, but it also goes for the other side, that we're not judgmental. Needing a prop or using a prop doesn't mean that we're inadequate, that, you know, and often it is about allowing us to experience what we need to experience in a better way than if you didn't use the prop at all.
Right. Yeah, it's being responsive to your own body in the moment, which is what it's really all about.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if, kind of bringing us back to full circle, if the idea is that exercise is no longer a dirty word or a negative word, right? And it's like, it's something that is joyful on the whole, even if you don't look forward to every single class you go to. You know, I'm not always doing cartwheels on my way into, know, a class, but because you're going to feel better after, it's a valuable part of your well-being.
Right.
So if that is really the goal ultimately, then there's a lot of work into trying to make it an experience that is positive and about something that really matters to you. And I think that's what's going to help you turn it into a habit that is easier to stick to. Then it more becomes about the time constraints or, oh, I didn't sleep well last night. Those sort of things that are real challenges, but not as deep, I think, as what we're talking about in our conversation today, which is more having past hurtful and challenging experiences around exercise and just wanting to kind of create a whole new slate there.
Right.
Well, I think we've hit a lot of very important topics today, and I'm really hoping we have given some listeners what they need to, no matter where they're at, just push themselves further in this journey to reframe what it means to be kind to their bodies with movement and exercise, and just become hopefully one day experts at rejecting that sort of unhelpful diet culture BS and like I said, gravitating toward the people and resources that really, really help you create a better life and stronger in the sense of well-being and helping you accomplish what you want in the world, which is much, much more powerful than any sort of clothing size or anything else like that.
Right. Yeah.
Before we go, I'd love for you to share, if people wanted to either connect with you directly or find Curvy Yoga in their area, or maybe they want to see if they could become Curvy Yoga certified themselves, where should they go to get engaged with you?
Yeah. So curvyyoga.com is the website, and that's the best place to find all of that information. So you can search for a local teacher. You can learn more about our teacher training. I mentioned our online studio. We have both free and paid memberships to the studio. So if you want to just kind of check things out, you're welcome to. We have a ton of free resources available to really help people figure out different pose options that might work for their body, to try our kind of yoga. So you can find that all there, as well as my book that came out this year that you mentioned earlier, Curvy Yoga, which is all about the connection between yoga and body acceptance and how you can live that both on and off of your yoga mat.
Oh, I love that so much. I highly recommend people to follow up with those resources and connect with you, because I think that is definitely a step in the right direction. It's going to take you to places you've never thought possible. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for listening, everybody.
And that's our show. Thank you so much for listening. I would love if you could take a minute and leave a rating and review on iTunes. I know they don't make it very easy, so I have a few quick tips for you. First, launch the Apple Podcast app, and then you're going to click the search button to enter the name Body Kindness, and you'll find my podcast. You'll see the album art. And when you click on the album art, there is going to be a button in the middle at the top. It's called Reviews. Click that. And then when you scroll to the bottom, you will see an option to leave a review. And so you'll click that button and go ahead and write your thoughts. I also would love ideas for future episodes. You can email me, Rebecca@bodykindnessbook.com. Again, that's Rebecca@bodykindnessbook.com. I love chatting about the show and how it's helpful. And so keep those emails coming. And also, if you're not yet completed with the e-course, don't forget that's a free resource for anyone who's interested in practicing body kindness. If you visit bodykindnessbook.com and click on Get Started, just enter in your name and email and you'll get instant access. I'll see you there.